of the Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire, held on Monday the 25th of July 2022. I declare this meeting open at 7:03 p.m. and would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to advise members of the public gallery that this meeting is being audio recorded in accordance with council policy. If you are asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. Item 1 this evening is attendances and apologies. We have a leave of absence from Councillor Dean Strawtons. Item number 2 is public question time. 2.1 is public questions. Could I please ask Margaret Carla to come forward and read your question, please?
Good evening, councillors. My question is, why were the names removed from the submissions in the online questionnaire relating to the proposed rate rises in response to question 2 on the online questionnaire, which received some 80 submissions, and yet the names on the submissions sent in response to question 3, which asked people to upload supporting attachments if required, and there were only 3 of those lodged in this way, the names were left on. Thank you.
I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond to your question this evening, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Ms. Carla. I apologise for this administrative oversight. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. We've worked to ensure any identifying details within question 3 attachments have now been redacted, and a revised attachment has been uploaded to the Shire's website.
Under the Local Government Act, we are to allow 15 minutes for public question time at a OCM or SCM. We have not reached that time frame this evening, so I will open public questions from the floor. Is there any public questions from the floor? Mr. Mack, would you like to come forward and ask your question, please?
Good evening, councillors. Good evening, staff. Today I was reading a article actually on the ballot thefts in Serpentine Jarrahdale on business.com.au, and at the bottom of it there was a link to an article on budgets on different councils. Had a look through this article, and it showed the total revenue of Serpentine Jarrahdale for last year as being $35.7 million, and it then went on to say that we had a profit in last year of $18 million, more than half of the total revenue. It also went on to say in the previous year we had a total revenue of $34.8 million, of which we had a total profit for the council of $12 million. Can council please confirm that these figures are correct as published on business.com.au?
Mr. Mack, we would have to take that question on notice and supply you with an answer once we can actually verify exactly what the information that you've been reading is.
Thank you, Madam President. My second question then would be, if councillors are unaware if that figure is correct and the total revenue profits that we have had over the last 2 years, how can councillors accurately be voting tonight on a budget in which is going to include a rates increase?
Again, Mr. Mack, we'll take your question on notice.
Thank you very much. And my final question would be, if this is shown to be true and we do increase rates, will we be expecting to see 2-3 times the amount of services delivered to the Shire to justify having a rate increase when we already have a large amount of money in reserve and we already have some struggling ratepayers who are struggling to meet?
Mr. Mack, in response to your third question, I will actually ask the Director of Corporate Service to actually explain to you the reason that the Shire has reserve accounts and what those reserve accounts actually do for our community.
I'll start again, just for the recording. So reserve accounts are created when you know you are going to need to expend funds in the future, but you're unsure what the quantum is and you're unsure when. This is opposed to a liability when you know what you owe and when you are going to have to pay that. So for instance, we intend to have a emergency road renewal reserve. This is set aside for unforeseen road failures, such as the Cardup culvert incident earlier this year, so that you're actually able to fund those things as and when they occur. This is concomitant with good financial management.
Well, perfectly good answers, but to continue to increase rates, to increase our reserve at a time that ratepayers are struggling, seems a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Ms. Brazier, you put your hand up. Would you like to come forward, please?
Lisa Brazier, PO Box 18, Mundajong. My first question is, in the OCM, 18th of July 2022, item 10.1, I noted during debate that the Shire President stated, and I quote, having been on council for a number of years, been Shire President for a number of years, I am privy more so than my fellow councillors to further information up the chain through other organisations and state government departments. My question to the Shire is, are all councillors privy to the same information as yourself in regards to tonight's motions that they have been asked to vote on?
Yes, they are, Ms. Brazier.
Thank you. My second question is, one of the Shire's values is we work as a team. Given tonight councillors have been asked to vote on the 2023 financial budget, the differential rates and minimum rates, do you think that all your councillors feel part of the team when casting their vote tonight, when you have openly stated that you are privy more so to them to further information, because there are some big ticket items in this budget?
Yes, we do work as a team, Ms. Brazier.
But do you think they feel part of the team, was the question?
You will have to ask individual councillors that. I cannot speak on behalf of councillors.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions from the floor? Thank you, Mr. Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Rich and fellow councillors and staff for the opportunity to ask a question. I note that the Minister, being Honourable Rita Sapiotti, MLA, put out a press release on Sunday the 24th of July 2022. Now that press release was about black spot funding making a difference in WA roads, and it's on the mediastatements.wa.gov.au website if people want to refer to that. And I look as an ex-councillor with interest. There's $1 million to install ear protection safety barriers at Kenwick Link on the Roe Highway, $226,000 to install a raised safety platform in the city of Gosnells, $365,000 to the city of Kwinana, $200,000 to the city of Stirling, $273,300 to the city of Kalamunda, $280,000 to the city of Canning, and $788,000 to the city of Wanneroo. My question is it going to be the case that ratepayers have to keep funding improvements to roads, or is the Shire going to advocate for black spot funding to get these roads fixed in our Shire?
Councillor Coles, the Shire has been extremely successful in its advocacy of funding for roads in the Shire. As you would be aware, through the state government election cycle, we gained $18 million for 3 roads across our Shire, which the Shire officers are diligently working to do the planning for those road upgrades to be done. When it comes to black spot funding, applications are made for funding and it goes to an outside body, which you would be well aware of, and they are all processed through a criteria. And whether we gain funding through that criteria or not is up to whatever else is actually put in by other councils at the time as well.
So then my follow-up question, Councillor Rich, is what advocacy, if any, did the Shire do for the recent black spot funding approvals or process?
Mr CEO?
Madam President, I need to take that question on notice if I can. And
Again, I'm somewhat concerned when there's councillors tonight voting on the budget. The comment that has been made to ratepayers is that we need to increase, that you need, I'll say that again, that you need to increase the rates to pay for roads. And I'm asking a question here as a ratepayer, that what advocacy, if any, the Shire has done black spot funding. Because when I asked a question, when I was a councillor at the information breakfast, the question I said, what would happen if we kept the rates in line with a long-term financial plan, which is a 2% increase only, not 4.9%. The answer that was given was the money would come out of roads. And do ratepayers and residents want to see roads not being improved in this Shire? So I'm here now asking, what advocacy, if any, has this Shire done for black spot funding to improve our roads, when quite clearly, unequivocally, Council tonight are voting to increase rates, and the reason that has been given, and I can say this now no longer as a councillor, the reason that you are going to increase the rates, that you are voting to increase the rates is to improve the roads. Now I am here as a ratepayer asking, what advocacy, if any, have we done to improve the roads in this Shire? Or is it simply a case of the residents being the cash cows that have to pay to get these roads fixed? And I would like an answer to that question.
Councillor Coles, there is a great deal of advocacy. Mr. Coles, sorry. There is a great deal of advocacy that goes into all of the funding that we apply for at both state and federal level. You would be well aware that black spot funding at both state and federal level goes through a process with a criteria, and we have to basically compete against all other local governments for that funding.
So you are on the Metropolitan Regional Roads Group Committee. What have you done to advocate for funding for roads in this Shire?
Advocated quite strongly, Mr. Coles. Advocating for funding for roads. Mr. Tomlinson.
Councillors and ratepayers. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, what's the projected profit for this budget?
I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond to your question, please.
One moment, Madam President. But before I answer that question, it's very important that you understand what profit means for this organisation. So in the private enterprise, well, profit is called change in net assets. So in private enterprise, the asset that you're trying to increase is cash to distribute as dividends. In this organisation, the asset we're trying to increase are roads, parks, halls.
Yes,
not cash.
With the rate increase.
So the proposed increase in assets for this organisation from this budget is $15.6 million.
Is that the only profit?
There is only one profit.
Okay, all right. Okay. And the second thing, why is the Shire person a verge slasher? And every time I speak to someone about Shire, the verges are the residents' problem. So why do you waste the money on a verge slasher when you won't be, isn't it?
Madam, thanks for the question. We have tried to address some of the issues that have been raised by residents, particularly in the rural areas, about the quality of verges, and the purchase of a verge slasher will help with that, we think. Whether we can achieve the right level of service that the community expects in terms of verges being maintained is something we'll work towards, but I think the community, particularly in the rural areas, has said they'd like us to do more in terms of slashing of verges. So that's why it's proposed to buy a verge slasher.
So what about the reserves and stuff like that, Carabinjal and stuff like that, the trees under the phone lines? What's happening with that?
You're talking about the trees up in Milk.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm happy to provide a detailed response on that matter, if you like, in addition to an answer now.
Yep.
But we have tried to work with Telstra and with Western Power on trying to get the power lines in those trees removed.
Yep.
And I'm happy to give you I'll break down this response, if you like, in a detailed response to the minutes, because there has been quite some work gone into that.
It's been going for 5 years. I've been asking the question, so.
What, in about 5 years? I haven't been here for 5 years, but certainly we can give you a detailed response in what's happened in that regard, and happy to outline where that's up to for you there.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Is there any further questions from the floor? Ms. Carla?
As a condition of development approval, private landowners are required to keep stormwater runoff on their own properties. Can you tell me, please, who is responsible for stormwater running off a road reserve onto private property?
I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond. Director of Infrastructure Services to respond to your question, please.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam President. The stormwater runoff from the road to contain that or convey that through pipe or open drain system is the responsibility of the Shire.
And I'll just add, if I can, then, if you think there's a situation where you'd like that considered, please email the officers and we can have a look at that separate to the meeting.
Is there any further questions from the floor? Public question time concludes at 7:20 p.m. Item 3 is public statement time. We don't have any public statements submitted.
None have been received prior to the meeting, Madam President.
Thank you. Is there any public statements from the floor this evening? Thank you, Mr. Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Rich. I've come unprepared, but it'd be remiss of me not to stand here and talk on something that I believe so passionately about, something that I have fought for the last 4 years as a councillor, and that is increase the rates. I'm proud of my fact that I've never ever got on record to increase rates. And if I was happened to be on the other side of the lectern tonight, I would certainly be sitting there explaining to my fellow councillors that we do not need to increase the rates. It's quite clear that people in this community are doing it tough. It's quite clear that the cash rate is going up. It's quite clear that mortgages are going up. It's quite clear that as councillors, you can save money. As councillors, you can dictate the budget. As councillors, you have the power to make the decisions of what is in the budget. Do not let the tail wag the dog. You are here as elected representatives. It is an honour. You don't realise what the honour is until you stand at this side as a member of the community standing at the lectern because someone was convicted of stealing ballots. You don't realise the pride, the honour that it is to be seated at that table as a councillor representing the wonderful people of this Shire. Do not sit there thinking you have to increase the rates. Do not sit there thinking that you're being told to increase the rates because we need to have a $15 million profit this year. Think about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Think about Mr. and Mrs. Brown. Think about your constituents. Think about your residents. Think about your ratepayers. Think about the small business operators in this wonderful shire that are doing it bloody tough. The onus is on you as elected representatives to think about what you are doing. You go line by line through the budget. Can you stop employing new staff until 23-24? Can you defer some projects? And don't bring it back to roads, councillors, because yes, we do need roads to be improved. We understand that. You understand that. I've been in this place for 4 years knowing that roads is the number one issue in this place. Think about how you can save money. I said it many, many times on record, the Shire has no money. The money the Shire has is ratepayers' money. And that cash cow that you keep on getting money out of is going to run dry. People are struggling. Cost of fuel, I've already talked about mortgage rates. This is an area of Western Australia and Perth. People no longer choose to live in Byford for the acreage. People choose to live in Byford because that's the only place they can afford to live. That is the stark reality. The other stark reality is that you are councillors here, elected councillors to represent those people in Byford, to represent the people in the rural area. And look at the feedback. You had 60-something respondents. The common theme for those respondents was the increase of 15% to their rates in the rural area. Now, the officer's recommendation is, we won't change our recommendation because 60 people, whatever. I'll make the comment again, councillors.
Councillor
Do not
Coles,
let the tail wag the dog.
Mr. Coles, you have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further statements from the floor? Statement time concludes at 7:25 p.m. Item number 4 is petitions and deputations, of which there is nil. Declaration of councillors and officers' interests, of which there is nil. Item 6 is receipt of reports. 6.1 is reports. 6.1.1 is consideration of submissions 2022-23, differential general rates and minimum payments. Can I please have a mover for the motion?
Madam President, could I propose an alternate resolution to this, please?
Is Councillor D'Agostino?
It's only a minor change, but to try and capture the pulse of the submissions and the like, I'd like to say that the council, it's really these words, having considered the submissions on proposed differential rates in attachment 1 in accordance with section 6.36 of the Local Government Act, notes the submissions received. So it's just including that wording, having considered, it's as sent through from the Manager of Corporate Governance. If that wording, have you got that wording handy, Ken? Oh, thank you. Yeah, so having considered, yep, the submissions, yep, on proposed differential rates in attachment 1 in accordance with section 636 of the Act, notes the submissions received. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously.
And the reason as stated is spot on. Thank you.
Item 6.1.2, consideration of the 2022-2023 financial year budget. Can I please have a mover for the motion?
Madam President, I'd like to move my alternate motion that I circulated earlier, please, with one just slight amendment from the version I circulated earlier. So concerning dot point 9, the addition, where we have the project numbers, I'd just like to explicitly spell out what those projects are, just so that they're not just project numbers, but they have the associated project name or project description attached to them, please.
Councillor Bison, while that occurs, for the benefit of the gallery, can I ask you to provide an overview of what your alternative motion is?
I could if I just not handed it to Manager of Governance. Thank you very much. As circulated, my alternate motion is the officers option 2 with a list of proposed savings at 7. Those being the deletion of projects, Kinsella Avenue playground upgrades, youth services facility and safety upgrade with a change, Abernethy Road roundabouts, the retention of the existing youth development team and not transitioning to the new structure, and the deletion of the new spending on new bus shelters, but retaining the carryover funds, totaling an adjustment of 442864, which is then expressed as a reduction in the GRV residential and UV rural residential radian dollar and minimum payments. The only other adjustment that I failed to mention was dot point 6, which requests a reason, that being resolves realise identified savings to reduce rate increase as the reason for the change to the differential rates. Oh, and the addition of dot point 9, which we're just amending to include the projects. Dot point 9 requests the CEO to bring those projects back to council with more fulsome planning for the budget year 23-24.
And Madam President, if I may make an amendment to the alternate motion, please.
Councillor Bison, happy with that wording?
Yes, thank you.
So as an amendment to this alternate motion, if I could request removal of the instalment plan admin charge, second instalment, and then in option 3, second, third and fourth instalment, please.
Councillor Duggan, have you got that written somewhere, or do you want to identify where that is on the screen? Can I ask the Director of Corporate Services to come and help the Minute Secretary with the wording Councillor Doug is proposing, please? Councillor Duggan, is there going to be some corresponding savings?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
So,
we'll hold that, just hold that thought for a minute then. Yes, we just want to get the wording of the amendment correct, that's all. Thank you.
just doing fine.
Councillor Duggan, could you tell us what your proposed savings then as well, then, please?
My proposed saving is to remove $40,000 from the road reserve, the 600,000 listed on page 1 of the long-term financial plan, please. So reducing it from 600,000 to 560,000.
Duggan, just to confirm, your proposal is to reduce the transfer to the road reserve from 600,000 to 560,000.
That's correct. Thank you.
Councillor Duggan, are you happy with that wording, or would you like the Manager of Director of Corporate Services just to explain what we've done to the tables to make that occur?
Sorry. So the removal of the $5 and setting it at zero sets it at zero, although those instalment payment plans will still be offered. And if we move to the following table, so that shows a loss of revenue of $40,000 and a reduction in the transfer to the road reserve of $40,000.
Thanks. That's correct.
Could I clarify, try to ask a question on that table? The 2%, sorry, the 2% instalment plan interest rate, that's different, because I think previously the structure was when we paid it quarterly, we just paid the normal, we just got a discount if we paid it up front. So that's a new introduction, is that correct?
No, the 2%'s always been there, so that there is usually a flat fee, the $5, and the 2% interest rate. The 7% is for the unpaid.
Thank you. So the 2% is the same as it's been every year, did you say?
Yeah, so we still had that last year.
Great, thank you.
Have a seconder for the amendment, please. Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this amendment? I'm opposed to this amendment. Councillor Duggan, would you like to open debate?
Certainly, thanks, Madam President. This $5 charge equates to approximately $40,000 in our budget. And although it's not a lot of money, it is something that's new compared to last year, and I don't feel that it's fair for us in this current economic climate to be putting that charge onto the people who are struggling the most. The people who are struggling the most are the ones who can't pay their rates up front, and they need these instalments. I see the $5 as, when it's called an admin charge, we've not got a request for additional admin staff to deal with it. So it's staff that is already there to take this and to sort this. So in that sense, it doesn't make sense to me. The reason why I've looked at taking it from the road reserve is because only a couple of weeks ago, when we first got our long-term financial plan, when we're looking at the budget, there was $400,000 to go to that road reserve. By cutting money out from other places, we've managed to make that $600,000. So in 2 weeks where we've managed to increase it $200,000, I think that that's a pertinent place for us to look at being a little kinder to our struggling residents and to take $40,000 out of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Councillor D'Agostino, would you like to speak or reserve? I agree with Councillor Duggan in part that the $5 charge is basically allocated to the people in our community, our residents that can least afford it. What I don't agree with is taking money out of our road reserve. No matter what the amount is, we all are well aware of the Carnup Road culvert collapse last year. We have a number of culverts across the Shire that are perilously close to the Carnup Road culvert without having the funding to actually replace those culverts. So any money that we can put to road reserve so that we have funding there to actually improve our roads is where we need to be. It's what our community has told us that they want to see happen over numerous years. So for that fact alone, with the funding being removed from the road reserve, I can't support this amendment. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the motion?
A question, if I may, Madam President.
Yes, councillor Bias.
Through to the director, I believe councillor Duggan said this is the first year for the $5 charge, but historically there's been the 2% charge. Is that correct?
Historically we've charged the 5 and the 2%. In fact, it was 5 and a higher percentage, but the Act changed to the maximum we could charge the 2. We removed the 5 last year, or for COVID for the first time. The officers were recommending that be reintroduced this year.
So just to clarify, it wasn't included on last year's budget, but previous to that it had been included.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Duggan, would you like to close?
Madam President, there's no right of reply on amendments. It's just for and against. Sorry.
All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? Casting vote, the amendment is lost. Thank you.
Can I have votes recorded, please, Madam President?
You can. Minute Secretary, can we please record the votes? I have some amendments I'd like to move to the motion that we have before us, please. The first amendment is to the first table, differential rates. The first amendment is to the GRV residential figure, to amend that to 0.108073, to amend the UV rural residential to 0.004693. In the next table, amend GRV residential to 1,334, and amend the UV rural residential to 1,986. Then Under item 7, amend the table. To include the $244,000 for the Callista Avenue playground. Kinsella. Just remove it. And remove the project for Abernethy Road, roundabouts, medium trees and rain gardens.
So, Madam President, just clarifying, taking them out of the table means that they are back in the budget. Okay, thank you.
Back in the budget.
Are you meant to use them out as well?
No.
No. Madam President, are they the only changes to the table that you'd like? The removal of the Kinsella Avenue playground and the Abernethy Road, meaning they're back in the budget?
Yes, thank you.
Director of Corporate Services, do we have a total figure of what the total savings then are? Are you happy with that, Madam President?
I am, thank you.
For the benefit of the gallery, could I ask you to just explain what the change to the
And I also have amendments to item 9. I don't have the current item 9 in writing.
Oh, we're deleting those words out of those for those projects?
No.
No?
With regards to project 80407, I'd like to remove the wording and insert some wording with some help from the Director of Development Services, that project, instead of being the playground upgrade, is the funding is to go to officers providing a report back to council detailing.
Madam President, could I suggest that might be a point 10, because number 9 deals with bringing the projects back that are out of the table. If you wanted to make your amendment conditional upon those items going back in, you could have it as a point 10, which might be a clearer way to represent it. So it might be the request the CEO present council with a report on Kinsella Avenue playground upgrades, or playgrounds overall?
No, it's present council with a report detailing an audit an audit reserve improvement plan and community engagement for our, for the Shire's local playgrounds director.
Yeah, I think because of the word reserve is quite a broad statement, if you're specific on a piece of work to look at auditing and recommending essentially a plan to upgrade local playgrounds,
Yes.
it would probably be useful to be really specific on that, because the word reserve can mean a variety of different things, from sporting to natural to.
So audit playground reserves, or is it, or take out reserve?
It's a report detailing a program. Yeah.
Yes.
To funds being expended on Kinsella Avenue Playground upgrade?
I would actually amend item 9 to remove that from item 9.
Reference to Kinsella Playground is committed 109. And Abernethy Road? And Abernethy Road, so please, next. Are there any further amendments, Madam President?
Yes, item 10, in regards to the Abernethy Road project, for a report to be presented to council detailing the scope of work prior to commencement of the project.
Are there any further motions? Are you happy with what's on the screen?
I think that's it.
We should have a minute to make sure the Director of Corporate Services can check those numbers, please, Madam President. For the benefit of the gallery, is it worth explaining what those amended amounts of the GRV rate the dollar comes to while that wording is being, and the council as well?
The amendments that I've made, that I've put forward, would bring the GRV residential to 4.6 and the rural residential to 13.5. And then with that, it would also amend the minimum payments required for both of those categories.
That's fine.
Madam President, a question. Would you also amend dot point 6? Because dot point 6 exclusively talks about realising identified savings to reduce the rate increase as the reason for being differing from the advertised budget.
Councillor Bias, I believe that would remain the same given that both of the rates are lower than the advertised rates for those two differential categories.
The figures are right, Madam President, so we're ready to move on. Whatever you are doing words. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have a mover for a seconder for these amendments, please? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to these amendments? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. In putting forward these amendments this evening to the alternate motion put forward by Councillor Bias, I know councillors are very much aware of the financial constraints on our community. We also have a job to do with the financial management for not only our residents and ratepayers now, but also for our residents and ratepayers of the future. There has been a great deal of discussion around the upgrade to the Constella Avenue playground, and I agree with councillors that have raised concerns of there not being enough information provided. But I also see that we do need to have that planning work done. And I see that it is imperative that that work is done within the next 12 months so that we have a plan moving forward and that we have a plan going into the two elections that will be held in 2025, being the state and federal election. Because without having the planning work done in a timely manner for those items, we won't have anything to put forward for advocacy in that area. I consider the playgrounds in our area below grade, as do most parents that you speak to, especially parents of our youngest demographic in the Shire, which is our 5 and under age bracket. We really don't have any playgrounds in the Shire that are appropriate age-wise for those kids. And given the fact that a lot of the people that do move to our area are young families with young kids. We need to be able to provide in that space and provide playgrounds that are of an adequate grade for the kids to play on. In reinstating the Abernathy Road roundabouts, there has already been a great deal of planning work done. Although there is probably more work that can be done in the planning, I believe, given grant funding that the Shire has already received to start some of this work, that this work needs to continue and we need to make a start. I'm happy with a report to come back to council detailing that scope of detailed work before the money is actually released for that project. But I think that we do need to move forward with this project. I think the more detail council has on where and how the money is spent, the better. And although it's not a large decrease in the rates, it is a decrease from what has been advertised. And I think it actually puts us in a place where we would open the advocacy work of the Shire to be able to gain more funding, especially in the playground area for our community moving forward. Thank you. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak or reserve?
No, I'll reserve. Thanks, Madam President.
Thank you. Councillor D'Agostino.
Thanks, Madam. Thank you, Madam President. The pulse here for me is that there is an increase proposed with your changes, and so that's why I'm against the same. I think, and this will be a continued theme and discussion tonight, we're in consistently challenging times economically. We're still in a pandemic type environment. There's a lot of uncertainty. We've got rising interest rates, and as it's been said repeatedly, there's so many challenges for everyone. So I understand the rising costs of running the Shire and the inflated costs of some contractors, but I think we need to be aware and cognisant of our community, what they want, and the pulse that they're giving us, and the message in the submissions and the like. So I'm against these changes as they're proposed.
Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there any councillors who'd like to speak for the amendments? All those for the amendments? All those against? Motion is lost 2-4.
Madam President, if there's no other amendments, council could return back to the motion that Councillor Bias moved and consider that, or other councillors could propose amendments.
Is there any further amendments from councillors? Is there anybody opposed to the alternate motion put forward by Councillor Bias? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Councillor Bias, would you like to open debate, please?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Firstly, I would like to recognise the hard work of our officers in putting the initial draft budget together. It is a monumental task and covers many months and touches every section of the organisation. So thank you to everyone who's present tonight, but also all of your staff in the background. Thank you to all of the ratepayers who provided submissions through the public comment period. A total of 83 submissions were received, and I'm very grateful personally for each and every ratepayer who took the time to share their story, and for all the ratepayers who came out this evening. Colleagues, as you will see from the alternative I've circulated, and which is now on screen, I am proposing a number of savings to the original draft budget, with all of the savings being directed to driving the rate increase as low as possible. The draft budget entertains an increase of 4.9% GRV residential and 15% for UV rural residential, which is on top of the 26.5% increase to the minimum payment some families incurred last year. The motion I put before you will lower these increases to 3.9% and 8.4% respectively. Returning to those proposed savings, I believe the savings that I proposed are balanced. The savings balance the need to deliver core infrastructure, programs and services, while balancing the need to reduce the rating burden on our community wherever possible. Now, many of these savings may be called cuts. However, I draw my colleagues' attention to point 9 of my motion, requesting that the CEO bring more detailed planning to Council for future consideration. Frankly, I love these projects. They have merit, which is precisely why we need to get them right. With this motion, we're not saying no, we're saying not now. I want to fully understand the scope and costings of these projects, which at current estimates total just under $400,000. We need to fully understand the scope and delivery before I'm comfortable signing off on that amount of money. Point 9 of the motion provides the scope for officers to do the preliminary work so that we can be fully informed on these decision points. Confident that the ratepayers will be getting value for money on these initiatives. Colleagues, this is simply my view of the budget. I'm very eager to hear your input. We've already had considerable input this evening through amendments. I welcome that input and feedback and thank you for your consideration on this alternative.
Thank you, Councillor Bias. Councillor Strange, would you like to speak or reserve?
I'll reserve, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam President. My view on the whole thing is like we have, and I appreciate all the points that have been put forward. I look at things a little bit differently in the fact that if we continually remove things from the budget which have good merit, I don't think you'll ever get them back again. And the point I would make also is that next year a number of other good projects may go back. So what are we going to do in the end? Are we going to end up with anything, or are we just going to end up as a backwater and virtually in time probably stagnate to the council to a point where we won't be even able to attract good staff because of our facilities won't be up to standard. And that's a very important thing that we have is our staff too, because constantly losing staff. We're in a very hard staff working environment these days because there is a considerable amount of work around for people. People are getting more money than probably they ever got in their life now. And you know, like, and don't use this flippantly, but there is a number of, most people now are getting more money than ever they were before because of the environment we live in. I also, the argument that, we're in a pandemic, well, we could be in a pandemic for bloody 10 years. We could have something else come up next year. And I just think it's, and I do understand that it's hard sometimes on the ratepayers, but we also have to consider the fact that next year, it may even be harder. So where do we go next year? Or do we keep continually cutting things out until we have, virtually nothing or no growth in the area, which is something that I've, over the years, I've seen a lot of growth, obviously, because I've been here quite a long time. But I don't want to see us stagnate to the point where we just don't go forward. And my worry is that is what's going to happen if we continually keep slashing things from the budget and don't move projects forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there any other councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to commend Councillor Bias. I think it's a good compromise on what's a difficult economic challenge in question. I'm probably on the side of trying to keep them down even lower, but I think it's a matter of trying to find a compromise way through. And I think the savings that Councillor Bias has identified is probably a compromise way. I probably would be more on the reduction of staff scenario, but I think it's one way through what's a very difficult economic question. And I think it's important that we look to take notice of what our ratepayers have said, which is, please, councillors, please look at every possible cost saving you can to try and minimise the rate increase. And I think Councillor Bias's proposal is a good compromise in what's a very difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Do any other councillors like to speak against the motion? I will speak against the motion and foreshadow the officer's recommendation if this motion is lost. Is there any other councillors like to speak for the motion?
I'd like to speak for the motion, if I may. Madam President, I agree that, ideally we would love to be able to fund all of these projects, but we do need to be fiscally careful, and I don't feel that we have the information put before us that we can make good decisions on a number of these. I didn't even know what a rain garden was, and I feel that by the time we get that information before us, we would be able to make better decisions for the 23-24 budget. So I think that, as Councillor Byers said, this is not saying no. This is just saying we've talked about this being a year of consolidation, so let's stick with that. Let this year be our year of consolidation, where we allow our staff to settle and to complete the projects that they are currently on without bringing these new ones in and without putting more pressure on our ratepayers. Thanks.
Is there any other councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillor Byers, would you like to close, please?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, colleagues, thank you for your input and feedback. In 5 years on council, I can honestly say this has been one of the most collaborative budget processes that we've gone through, and I thank you for that consideration. As Madam President has said in the lead up to this meeting, and the final comment that I would close this specific debate on, is we need to have a budget adopted tonight. We find ourselves in strange times with a council of 6 that requires no less than 5 in an absolute majority vote. I'm reminded of the quote, "Do not let perfect be the enemy of good." I believe this motion represents our best way forward, one that balances the needs of the organisation with a desire that I know we share in wanting to reduce the rating burden on our community as much as practically possible. Thank you to the officers. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to the ratepayers who provided submissions and those who braved the cold to be here tonight. Colleagues, I commend this motion to you and I humbly ask you for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Byers. All those in favour of this motion? All those against? Motion is 4-2. We need an absolute majority to pass the budget, so this motion does not achieve that.
Can I please have the votes recorded?
Thank you, Councillor Byers. Minute Secretary, can we please record the votes? Thank you. I have foreshadowed a return to the officer's recommendation. I will move the officer's recommendation with amendments. I agree with the majority of what councillors have said tonight. The one thing that I cannot agree with and I cannot support is the removal of projects, the majority of which support our youth and our children, which is what the majority of these removed projects in the alternate motion have been. I cannot support that in the fact that we are a growing young community and we need to be able to provide for those children and youth age people within our community. So the amendments that I will propose is to table 3.1. Is the amendment to GRV residential of 0.108073, rural residential 0.004693, in table 3.2, amendment to GRV residential 1334, GRV residential 1986, no, GRV residential, UV residential, sorry.
What's the amount?
1986.
Can we just confirm, Madam President, as the numbers on the screen are the numbers that you're moving the motion with, please?
Is that top one an 8 or a 6?
108,073.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you speak on the table for a second? And 04693.
Yes.
And then 19. So that's the same. Madam President, as a point of clarification, are they the same numbers that you moved previously as part of the? Yeah, so item 10.23 of the standing orders says that council can't go back and reconsider a motion that's been considered. And I would suggest that if the
motion that's in its entirety will not be the same.
Well, we look forward to seeing the rest of the motion then. I guess the numbers are the same. Yeah.
Actually, the numbers won't be the same. Can I actually ask for an adjournment to work through the numbers with the Director of Corporate Services, please?
Could I suggest that someone moves an adjournment for 10 minutes? And a seconder, and that's voted on, Madam President?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duggan to move. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strange. All those in favour? Motion is carried. We will adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes and return at 8:32 p.m.